A passage of arms is a trial of chivalry developed in medieval Europe. A knight standing alone or with a group of his fellow warriors blocks a path of a popular road. Any commoner or lord who arrived was left undisturbed, but if any knight attempted to pass, he would be blocked by doing so and challenged to a duel, which sometimes ended with first blood, and more often than not, death. If you decline the duel, your chivalry shall forever be marked in shame. The most famous depiction of a passage of arms is undoubtedly the Black Knight from Monty Python. Might I remind you that he technically never lost. It was a draw and only a mere flesh wound. With great movies out of the way, what is the most famous, historical passage of arms? The answer is the Honorable Pass of Santiago de Compostela, and the 10 knights defending it, led by the most skilled among them, Suero de Canones, or as he is more commonly known, He of the Pass. Before starting our story today, I'd like to give a huge shout out to my collaboration partner, Studium Historiae. He's making a video about medieval Spain as well. More specifically, the theory of convivencia, which means living together. The ideal that medieval Spain was a place of peace, where Muslims, Christians, and Jews all lived together in relative harmony. As we will come to see in our story today, this was not always the case. Suero de Canones was born in 1409 in the Iberian Kingdom of Castile. He was the son of a wealthy and landed Leonese noble. Reflecting his privileged upbringing, his father Diego de Canones was known as the Fortunate One, due to his vast riches and bountiful property. The young Suero was given the finest education and especially showed promise in writing. On the other side of his noble education, both Suero and his older brother Pedro were becoming exceptional squires. The two brothers spent a large portion of their teenage years in the Castilian court of John II. The Canones boys would serve under the head of the military and the king's favorite noble, Alvaro de Luna. During his service to the Castilian constable, Suero was knighted shortly before his first major battle. In 1431, a restless Castilian nobility was eager for war. Alvaro de Luna was only too willing to silence them. He intended to end the Reconquista by invading the last Muslim holdout, the Emirate of Granada. In recent years, civil war had weakened the country at the edge of Iberia. Suero Canones accompanied the Alvaro-led Castilian army into Granada. The opposing army, led by the previously overthrown Emir Muhammad the Left-Handed, met him shortly after he crossed the border. The two sides fought over an arid plain with only a single fig tree between them. The battle commenced with the charge of the Castilian knights, the 22-year-old Suero being among them. This bold move paid off, and the Muslim army broke within minutes. The cavalry chased down the retreating men, and by the end of the day, 12,000 lay dead. With Alvaro de Luna's campaign started off on great terms, it soon slowed down, and Alvaro de Luna only found minor successes until returning to Castile without having captured any new territory. This further angered the rowdy nobles, but Suero de Canones was left unfazed, for he knew of a way to claim fame during battle. By 1434, the young knight was in love. To fulfill his chivalric courting and to test his fighting skills, Suero de Canones took 9 fellow fully armored knights and an iron choker to King John II of Castile. He and his company walked into the room and up to the king. He didn't arrest him. Instead, he put the iron choker around his own neck and exclaimed to him that he would wear the choker every Thursday, symbolizing his imprisonment from lack of tangible chivalry and fame. He told King John that he would only release himself when he finally earned renown for killing another knight in a most honorable passage of arms. King John granted Suero and his comrades permission to carry out this knightly duty. Suero swore that the 10 of them would collectively break 300 of their own lances before claiming victory. The knights chose one of the busiest bridges in Spain to consecrate their passage of arms. On the northwest tip of Iberia was the destination of one of medieval Europe's most popular religious pilgrimage sites, the Church of Santiago de Compostela. Just before reaching the church, where all roads combine into one, is the bridge across the Ebregio River. On the far side of that bridge lay a hospital of the Knights Hospitaller, a holy order of knights similar to the Knights Templar that helped escort pilgrims not only in the Holy Land, but also here in Spain. In this place where symbols of religion and chivalry combined is where Suero de Canones set up his trial of the Honorable Pass. The year 1434 was also a Compostela year, a year in which the feast day of St. James, July 25th, fell on a Sunday. This happened every 6, 5, 6, and 11 years in that order. This meant there would be thousands of more people who would take the holy pilgrimage, and plenty of them would be knights. Suero did not only want to become the most chivalrous knight in Europe, but he also wanted everyone to know about it. The personal tourney of 10 knights had turned into its own attraction. Workers hired by the Canones family built bleachers to view, and 22 tents for passing by knights to sleep in while waiting for one of their 10 opponents. Another thing about the 10 guardians of the bridge is that their opposing knights could not pick their opponent. The challengers would choose who they faced. These 10 men were to share the brunt force of splintering at least 300 of their own lances on the armor of their opponent. 30 each one stinging the arm. The tournament started 15 days before the feast day of St. James. By that time, enough knights had showed up to test each one of the riders, some a few times over. By this point in later medieval history, jousting had gone slightly out of fashion, perhaps giving the 10 knights of Canones an advantage over their challengers. Suero fought on the first day, managing to dehorse the challenger and win, along with the rest of his company. The knight's fame spread along the pilgrimage route. More now joined to watch and challenge the 10. Hundreds lined the Ebregio River by the second day, and it only grew from there. Suero and the knights went on an unprecedented win streak, not allowing a single knight to pass the old Roman bridge. During the 9th day, Suero claimed his prize. As the rider passed, Canones raised his lance. The strike pierced the opposing rider's left eye, killing him instantly. He freed himself from his iron prison, but 300 lances had not yet been broken. They had just reached over 100 in that day, and the 10 knights were already bruised and bloodied from their many duels. Despite this, they continued on, as their fame attracted ever more talented adversaries. Just imagine how their couching elbow felt by the next day, and the day after that. Soon enough, the 10 knights had been dwindled down to only a few exhausted men, Suero being among them. On the 13th day, 2 days prior to the feast day of St. James, the remaining knights put down their lances and opened the way of the Honorable Pass for all to pass. In nearly 2 weeks, the 10 knights defeated a combined 166 opponents. 300 could never be reached, but more than half of that is an incredible display of skill regardless. After this, Suero de Canones' name was commonplace throughout much of mainland Western Europe. He was a celebrity and a symbol of chivalry incarnate. He would marry his love, whom he had dedicated his many wins to. The Honorable Pass would go down as the greatest passage of arms of all time, and in fact one of the greatest tournaments of all time. In 1434, the start of the eclipse of the medieval knight in Europe. Canones lived a quiet life after his shining moment. Not much is known of him for these years. When he did reappear onto the scene, he would reverse all of the chivalry he had just fought so hard for. In 1449, a 40-year-old Suero Canones was dead broke. His family's lavish lifestyle had finally caught up to them. He was in another prison of sorts, this one being in debt to a Jewish moneylender. During medieval times, the Iberian Peninsula was a place of heavy ethnic and religious diversity. According to the concept of convivencia, or living together, the three religions of Islam, Christianity, and Judaism all lived in relative harmony before 1492, the year when the Reconquista ended with the fall of Granada, as well as the expulsion of the Jews from Spain. As Suero is about to show you, this concept is not wholly accurate. And if you'd like to learn more about convivencia, go check out Studium Historiae's latest video. The link will be in the description as well as at the end of this video. For Suero de Canones, the noble knight of the Honorable Pass, there was only one way to solve his money problems, and that was with violence. The Jewish moneylender in question remains unnamed, but resides in the city of León. Suero's celebrity status made the crowd gather around him easily as he began preaching about Jewish wrongdoings. He rallied a mob and blamed the Jews collectively for the murder of Jesus. On Good Friday, when Jesus hung on the crucifix, the mob had erupted into open violence in the Jewish quarter of the city. Suero followed them, making sure that they killed his moneylender. The end result was a massacre of most of the Jews in León. With his debt erased, Suero de Canones celebrated by drinking wine mixed with lemonade with his anti-Semitic followers. Drinking this so-called Leonese lemonade is still a practice to this day on Good Friday. It is called Mater Judos, or quite literally, killing Jews. While it is claimed to not be an anti-Semitic practice, I don't see a way how you could deny it. With his debt cleared, Suero Canones returned to a quiet life. 7 years later, in 1456, his past would catch up with him. One of the many knights who Canones defeated during his 1434 tournament was a man named Gutierre Quijada. He finally sought revenge 22 years later, and sent one of his men to dispatch of he of the pass. He would kill the once powerful knight. Suero Canones is a character of two sides. On one corner, he's the embodiment of chivalry, as is his honorable pass. On the other hand, he was a violent anti-Semitic who celebrated his pogrom of León. Even the most chivalrous of knights can be anti-Semitic wankas, and that's just the world of medieval Europe. If you'd like to support this stoic historian, feel free to do so on Patreon for as little as $1 a day, and join Derek Clark, Savak Leo Nazarian, Taj Guilford, Nick Mate Voician, Lazarus Dykos, and Dave J. Or become a YouTube channel member like Derek Clark again, Donald Vincent, and what? Why? Thank you guys again for supporting the channel. I really appreciate it.